It was a cold morning in a small, quiet town. The sky was gray and the streets were almost empty. Birds flew low and the wind made the trees whisper. Everything felt normal. Until 3 police cars slowly stopped in front of a little blue house. Inside the house, an old man sat alone at the kitchen table. His name was Mr. Raymond. He looked about 70 years old, with gray hair and kind eyes. He was wearing a warm sweater and drinking tea from a white cup. There was a small radio, playing soft music in the background. The house was neat and full of books. There were old photos on the wall, some of a younger Raymond in a soldier's uniform. Suddenly, someone knocked loudly on the door. Bang! 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 Raymond looked up slowly. He didn't seem surprised. He put his cup down, stood up, and walked to the door. He opened it calmly. 3 police officers stood outside. One of them, Officer Daniels, looked serious. He held a piece of paper in his hand. Another officer, Jackson, looked confused. The third officer, Miller, seemed nervous. "Mr. Raymond?" Officer Daniels asked. "Yes," the old man replied quietly. "We have a warrant for your arrest," Daniels said, showing the paper. "You need to come with us." Raymond looked at the paper, then at the officers. He didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then he gave a small smile. "I understand," he said. "May I put on my coat?" The officers were surprised. Most people ask questions or get angry, but Raymond stayed calm, almost peaceful. "Sure," said Officer Jackson. Raymond walked slowly to a chair and picked up his coat. It was old but clean. He put it on and walked back to the door. "You don't want to know what this is about?" Officer Daniels asked. Raymond looked at him and said, "You'll find out soon." The officers looked at each other. His words didn't make sense, but they didn't argue. Officer Daniels handcuffed him gently. As they walked to the car, neighbors came out of their houses. Mrs. Clark, who lived across the street, gasped. "That's Mr. Raymond. What did he do?" "I don't know," someone whispered. "He's always so quiet." The officers put Raymond in the back seat. He sat straight, looking out the window as the car drove away. He didn't look angry or scared. He looked ready. At the police station, things moved fast. They took his fingerprints. They asked him questions, but he gave short answers. When they checked the computer, something strange happened. "His file is almost empty," Officer Miller said. "No job history, no medical records, not even a driver's license photo," added Jackson. "That's impossible," Daniels said. "He has to be in the system." Raymond sat quietly in the corner of the room. He looked at the officers and said, "May I make one phone call?" They nodded. He was taken to a small room with a phone on the wall. An officer watched him through a glass window. Raymond picked up the phone. He didn't look at any list or ask for a number. He dialed by memory. The call connected. He said only 2 words, "It's time." Then he hung up. He was taken back to the holding room. Officer Daniels asked, "Who did you call?" Raymond didn't answer. He just smiled. 15 minutes passed. Then Officer Jackson's phone rang. He looked at the screen and frowned. "It's the chief," he said. He answered. As he listened, his face slowly changed. His eyes widened. He looked at Raymond, then at his fellow officers. "Yes, sir," he said softly, then hung up. "Something's not right," he whispered. Before anyone could ask questions, another call came in, this time on the main station line. Officer Miller picked it up. "Yes? Who is this?" There was silence for a second. Then he stood up straight and said, "Yes, sir." He quickly handed the phone to Daniels. Daniels listened. The voice on the other end was firm and serious. "Release that man immediately. Do not ask questions. Do not touch him again." "Higher. Authorities are on their way." Daniels looked at Raymond, shocked. "Who are you?" Raymond didn't answer. He just looked at the clock on the wall. 10 minutes later, black cars arrived outside the station. Men in black suits stepped out. They walked into the station without a word. They showed badges. Government level. "We're here for Mr. Raymond," one of them said. Daniel stammered. He's in the holding room." "Not anymore," said the man. "He's with us now." Raymond stood up as the suited men entered. One of them gave a small nod of respect. "Sir," he said quietly. "Sorry it took us so long." Raymond gave a small smile. "Right on time." The officers watched in silence as Raymond walked out with the men in suits. No handcuffs. No anger. No fear. As the doors closed behind him, Officer Jackson whispered, "What just happened?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "I think we just made a huge mistake." The police station felt different after Raymond left. The officers sat quietly, confused and nervous. Just 1 hour ago, they thought they arrested an ordinary old man. Now, they weren't sure who he was. Officer Daniels sat at his desk, still thinking about the phone call. "It's time. Just 2 words." That was all Raymond said on the phone before everything changed. "Who says that and then gets rescued? By the government?" Daniels asked out loud. No one had an answer. Then Officer Miller spoke. "Do you think he's some kind of spy?" Officer Jackson shook his head. He looked too calm, like he knew everything before it happened. They sat in silence again. Meanwhile, in the black car, Raymond sat in the back seat. The men in suits didn't speak unless spoken to. One of them finally turned to Raymond. "Sir, your call reached the director. He sent us immediately." Raymond gave a small nod. "I knew he would." The driver asked, "Do you want to go home, sir?" Raymond shook his head. "No. Take me to the safe house." "Yes, sir." As the car drove away, Raymond looked out the window. His eyes were calm, but his mind was full of thoughts. He had stayed quiet for many years. He lived like a ghost. No one knew his real story. He was fine with that. Until now. Back at the station, Officer Daniels finally stood up. "I want to know what's going on. I want to know who he is." Officer Jackson said, "Should we search his house?" Daniels shook his head. "No, not yet. But I want everything we have on him. Any old reports, files, news, anything." Miller checked the computer again. "Still nothing. It's like he doesn't exist." Suddenly, the phone rang again. Daniels picked it up. "Yes, this is Officer Daniels." There was a pause. Then a cold voice said, "You need to stop asking questions." Daniels froze. "Excuse me? Who is this?" The voice continued. "You made a mistake. Let it go. For your safety." Then the line went dead. Daniels slowly put the phone down. He looked around. "Someone doesn't want us digging," Jackson asked. "What do we do now?" Daniels thought for a moment. Then he said, Wait. He'll show up again, I'm sure of it. Somewhere far away." The black car stopped in front of a large, quiet building hidden by trees. This was the safe house. It looked like a normal home, but inside it was full of high security. Cameras, locked rooms, steel doors. Raymond walked inside like he had been there before. In the living room, a man in a gray suit was waiting. "Raymond," the man said, standing up. "I'm glad you're okay." Raymond nodded. "You got my call?" "Yes." And we listened. The man looked serious. "Things are moving again. The same people who caused trouble 10 years ago, they're back. And they think you're still hiding something." Raymond gave a half smile. "They're right." The man leaned in. "Are you ready to reveal it?" Raymond looked at the floor. Then he said, "Not yet, but I will, when the time is right." The man nodded. "Just say the word." Later that night, at the police station, Officer Jackson couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Raymond, that calm voice, that powerful phone call, the way everything changed so quickly. He opened his laptop and began searching, not in police records, but on old military websites, old newspapers, even secret forums. Then, something caught his eye, a black and white photo. It showed a group of soldiers. One man stood in the middle. His face was younger, but it looked exactly like Raymond. The caption read, Captain R.W., known only by the name The Ghost, classified hero of Operation Silent Storm. Jackson's heart skipped a beat. He called Daniels. "Sir, I think I found him." Back in the safe house, Raymond sat alone, reading an old letter. It was yellow and fragile. The words were handwritten. It said, "If anything happens to me, protect the file. The truth must come out one day. M." Raymond folded the letter and placed it inside a small wooden box. He locked it and hid it under the floorboard. Then he whispered to himself, "It's almost time." Back at the station, Daniels looked at the photo Jackson found. "That's him. That's definitely him." Miller asked, "What does Operation Silent Storm mean?" Daniels shook his head. "I don't know. But if he was part of something like that, then we arrested the wrong man." Jackson said, "Not just wrong, dangerous, important." Daniels stared at the photo. "We need to be careful. Someone warned us to stop. But I don't think Raymond is the enemy. I think he's the key." Miller asked, "Key to what?" Daniels looked out the window and said quietly, "To something much bigger than us." It was early morning. A light rain fell on the roof of the safe house. Inside, Raymond stood at the window watching the clouds move. His hands were behind his back. His face looked calm. But his eyes showed something deeper. Pain, maybe. Or memory. A young agent walked into the room. "Sir," he said, "Director Wallace is here to see you." Raymond nodded. "Let him in." Moments later, a tall man in a suit entered. His face was sharp, and his eyes were full of worry. "Raymond," he said, "they dug you up after all these years." Raymond gave a soft laugh. "I stayed hidden long enough, but they never forgot." Wallace sat down. "The police who arrested you, they didn't know. We didn't warn them. That was our mistake." "I don't blame them," Raymond said. "They were just following orders, like I used to." Flashback. 20 years earlier. The sound of helicopters filled the sky. It was a war zone. Dust, fire, screams. Young soldiers ran through the battlefield. Gunshots echoed everywhere. In the middle of it all was a man in a black uniform. Strong, focused, fearless. It was Captain Raymond Weller, but back then no one called him by his real name. He was known only as the Ghost. He didn't speak much. He didn't show emotion, but his mind worked faster than anyone else's. He could enter a room full of danger and leave without a scratch. He completed missions no one else could. He saved lives. He stopped threats. He disappeared into shadows. His name never showed up in news reports, but inside the agency, he was a legend. But legends come with a cost. Back in the present, Wallace looked at Raymond. "We need to talk about the file." Raymond nodded slowly. "I still have it. Hidden. Safe." Wallace leaned in. "If the wrong people find it, they'll destroy everything. Names, operations, secrets. Gone." "I know," Raymond said. "But that's why I kept it. It's the only proof we were betrayed." Wallace's eyes darkened. "Do you think it's the same people now?" Raymond looked away. "They're back, quietly. They want the past erased. But I won't let that happen." At the police station, Officer Daniels sat in his office staring at the photo Jackson found. "Captain R.W., Operation Silent Storm," he read aloud. "The Ghost." Jackson sat across from him. "I found more," he said. "Old files. They're hard to read. Almost. Completely blacked out. But they mention a top-secret mission in 2005. Something went wrong. People died. And then... silence. Daniels frowned. So he disappeared? Not disappeared, Jackson said. Vanished. Protected. Miller walked in with a folder. Guys, listen to this. 10 years ago, someone tried to open a case on Raymond, a private investigator. He went missing. Daniels leaned forward. Missing? Gone. No trace. Jackson looked nervous. We really arrested the wrong person, didn't we? Daniels nodded slowly. He's not just innocent. He's someone the world tried to forget or for a reason. Back at the safe. House. Raymond sat down at a small wooden table. He opened a metal box. Inside were photos, documents, letters, and a small old voice recorder. He pressed play. A voice spoke. They're lying to us. The mission wasn't a rescue, it was a cover-up. We were told to remove the target, but the target was never a threat. The enemy was inside our own system. Raymond closed his eyes. He remembered that night. He remembered the burning village, the scared faces. The moment he realized the people they were told to kill were innocent, he had refused the order. He had turned against his team. That's when everything changed. They called him a traitor, but he wasn't the traitor. They were, and he had proof. Later that day, Director Wallace got a call. He listened quietly, then turned to Raymond. They're searching for you, not just the police. Someone else, someone dangerous. Raymond stood up. Then it's time to act. Wallace nodded. We can protect you, but only if you give us the file. Raymond looked at him. I will, but not yet. I need to do something first. Wallace raised an eyebrow. What? Raymond picked up an envelope and placed it in his coat pocket. I need to go back to the police station. Back. At the station, Officer Daniels was deep in thought when a knock came at the door. He opened it and froze. Raymond stood there, calm as ever, coat on, hands folded. You came back? Daniels said. Raymond nodded. We need to talk. Daniels let him in, but everyone in the room stared. Some backed away. Jackson whispered, He came back. Just like that? Raymond sat down. I want to tell you a story, he said. But first promise me one thing. Daniels leaned forward. What is it? Raymond looked him in the eye. If I tell you the truth, you must help me finish what I started. Daniels took a deep breath. Then he nodded. I'm listening. The air inside the police station felt heavy. Officer Daniels sat across from Raymond in the interview room. Officer Jackson and Miller stood nearby, listening carefully. Everyone was quiet, waiting for the old man to speak. Raymond looked around. The room. You don't know me, he said. You think I'm just an old man. But many years ago, I wore a different name. I was a ghost. A secret. He pulled a folded photo from his coat. He placed it on the table. It showed a group of soldiers in black uniforms. In the middle stood a younger Raymond. That was my team, he said. We were trained for the missions no one else would take. We worked in silence. No medals. No stories. Daniels leaned in. And what happened? Raymond looked down. One mission changed everything. We were sent to stop a threat. But there was no threat. It was a setup. A trap. Someone in our own. Government wanted us dead, Jackson asked. Why? Raymond looked him in the eyes. Because we knew too much. We had found something we weren't supposed to see. Something they buried. Outside the station, a black SUV slowly stopped. Across the street, two men stepped out. They wore black suits, dark sunglasses, and no smiles. They weren't from the local police. One of them spoke into a radio. Subject located. Inside. The other checked his watch. We move in 10 minutes. Back inside, Raymond continued. His story. I escaped that night, but others didn't. My team was erased, files deleted, identities lost. I became nobody. I lived in silence. Daniels asked. Why now? Why come out after all these years? Raymond pulled an envelope from his pocket and slid it across the table. Because it's happening again, he said. And this time, more. People will die. Daniels opened the envelope. Inside was a USB drive, a map, and a list of names. Raymond said, These names, they were part of the same mission. Some disappeared, some died. One of them survived, like me, and now they're being hunted. Miller looked at the map. What's this place? Raymond replied. It's where it all started, and where it will end. In the parking lot, the two men from the SUV began walking toward the station. One of them tapped his earpiece. We're going in. Do not alert the locals. We'll take care of it. Inside, Raymond suddenly stopped speaking. He looked toward the door. They're here, he said softly. Daniels frowned. Who? Raymond stood up. The ones who don't want me to talk. Before Daniels could ask anything, the front doors of the station opened. The two men in black suits walked in calmly, flashing fake IDs. We're with Homeland Security, one said. We're here to collect the man you arrested earlier. His name is classified. He is now in federal custody. Daniels walked up to them. Do you have any paperwork? One of them smiled. This is the paperwork. Daniels narrowed his eyes. Let me call the director. No time, the man said. Give us the subject now. Raymond stepped forward. Daniels, don't let them take me. They're not who they say they are. The men quickly moved forward, but Daniels stood. In front of Raymond, you're not taking anyone from this station without a real warrant. The first man reached into his jacket. Fast. Jackson shouted, Gun! Before anyone could move, Raymond stepped in front of Daniels. He grabbed the man's arm with shocking speed for a man his age and twisted it. The gun dropped to the floor. In 2 seconds, both men were on the ground, disarmed. Miller stood, frozen. Did you just take them both down? Raymond stood still, breathing calmly. Old habits die hard. Daniels looked down at the agents. Call for backup. Real backup. An hour later, the two men were taken away by real federal officers. Their fake IDs were gone. Their records, empty. They were ghosts, Daniels said. Just like him. Raymond sat quietly in the interview room again. Daniels walked in. I believe you now? Raymond nodded. Good, because we don't have much time. He tapped the list of names. The next person on this list is in danger. We have to reach them before they do. Jackson asked, Where are we going? Raymond looked up. To a man who knows everything, but hasn't spoken in 15 years. Somewhere, far away. In a small, dark cabin in the woods, a man sat in silence. His face was covered in scars. His eyes were empty. He held a photo in his hand, the same team photo Raymond showed earlier. He was one of them. A shadow moved outside his window. Then came a knock. The man stood up slowly. He didn't know it yet, but Raymond was coming, and he wasn't alone. The road stretched ahead like a dark ribbon. The police car moved fast, cutting through the cold morning mist. Inside, Raymond sat in the back seat. Officer Daniels drove, with Officer Jackson in the passenger seat. No one spoke for the first few minutes. The silence was thick. The air inside the car felt tense. Finally, Daniels asked, Are you sure he's still alive? Raymond nodded slowly. I'm sure. He's a survivor. Just like me. He's been hiding for 15 years. But they'll come for him too. Jackson looked back. What's his name? Raymond paused. His name was Aaron Briggs. We used to call him Brick. He was strong, smart, and loyal. He saved my life more than once. Daniels asked, So why hasn't he spoken to anyone in 15 years? Raymond looked out the window. Because the last time he trusted someone, his entire family died. 3 hours later, the car turned off the main road and onto a narrow gravel path. Trees surrounded the area. No signs. No houses nearby. Just woods and silence. Finally, they reached a small cabin. It looked empty. No lights, no smoke, no movement. Daniels turned off the engine. "Is this it?" Raymond nodded. "Yes." They stepped out. Raymond moved toward the cabin slowly, then stopped a few feet from the door. He raised his hand and knocked 3 times. A pause. Then one more knock. Nothing. Then a voice from behind the door said, "Go away." Raymond replied, "Brick, it's me." Silence. Then a sound. The lock turning. The door opened just a crack. A single eye peeked through. Then the door swung open fully. A tall man stood there. His beard was thick, his face aged, his eyes tired. He stared at Raymond for a long second. Then, with a shaking voice, he said, "I thought you were dead." Raymond smiled a little. "I thought the same about you." Brick stepped aside. "Come in, quickly." Inside the cabin, the air smelled like wood and old memories. There were no pictures on the walls, just books, a fireplace, and silence. Brick looked at Daniels and Jackson. "Cops?" Raymond nodded. "They're with me. We can trust them." Brick didn't look convinced, but said nothing. Daniels spoke. "We're here because someone's hunting the old team. 2 fake agents already tried to take Raymond." Brick turned away. Then it started again. Raymond said, "That's why we need you. You know things no one else does. You kept the second copy, didn't you?" Brick walked to a shelf, reached behind a book, and pulled out a small metal box. He opened it. Inside was a flash drive and a folded letter. He handed them to Raymond. "I said I'd never speak of this again," Brick said. "But if you're here, it means they found you." "They did," Raymond said quietly, "and they won't stop." Flashback, 15 years ago. Aaron Briggs walked through his front door smiling. His daughter ran up to hug him. His wife stood in the kitchen, cooking. It was a normal evening, but then an explosion, glass, fire, screaming. He woke up 3 days later in a hospital. His family was gone. The report said it was a gas leak, but he knew better. They wanted silence. And silence is what they got for 15 years, until now. Back in the cabin, Brick sat down, his hands shaking. "I told myself if anyone ever came asking about that mission, I'd run. But now, I'm tired of running." Raymond placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to run anymore." Daniels asked, "What's on that drive?" Raymond said, "Proof. Not just about the mission, but about the people who planned it. Names, codes, locations, everything we weren't supposed to find." Jackson leaned forward. "So this could bring them down?" Brick nodded. "If it gets to the right hands," Daniels said, "then we need to move. Now, before someone else finds this place." Raymond stood. "Agreed. Let's go." But outside, they were already too late. A red dot moved along the trees. A figure in black held binoculars, watching the cabin. He pressed a button on his radio. "Target located. All 4 inside. Prepare to engage." Another voice replied, "No survivors." "Repeat, no survivors." Back in the cabin. As Daniels opened the front door, a bullet struck the wood just inches from his head. Everyone dropped to the ground. "Sniper!" Jackson shouted. Raymond crawled to the window. "They found us! There's more than one." Brick pulled a shotgun from under the couch. "Then we fight." Daniels pulled his pistol. "Back door, go!" They ran to the back of the cabin. More shots fired. Windows shattered. The woods exploded with noise. Raymond turned to Brick. "Remember that escape route?" Brick smiled faintly. "Still got it." He kicked open a wooden panel on the floor. Under it, a tunnel. They climbed down one by one. The last thing Raymond heard before the hatch closed was the sound of footsteps entering the cabin above. Half a mile away, they emerged from the forest, dirty, bleeding, but alive. Raymond looked back at the smoke rising from the trees. That was just a warning, he said. Next time, they won't miss. Daniels asked, "Where do we go now?" Raymond pulled out a phone. "There's one more name on that list, someone even more dangerous than the people chasing us." Jackson looked nervous. "Who?" Raymond stared at the horizon, the one who started it all. The sky turned orange as the sun set behind the hills. Raymond, Daniels, Jackson, and Brick stood at the edge of a quiet highway. Their faces were tired, their clothes were torn, but their eyes were full of fire. They had escaped death again. But Raymond knew it wouldn't last long. "They'll be back," he said. "With more men, more guns." Brick asked, "Then where do we go?" Raymond looked at the list in his hand. Only one name remained. He pointed to it. Leon Hartman. Daniels read the name. "Who is he?" Raymond's face darkened. "The one who gave the order. The man who sent us to die. And now he runs everything from the shadows." Jackson asked, "Is he military?" Raymond shook his head. "Worse, he was military. Then he moved into intelligence, then private defense. Now he runs a security empire. He's rich, protected, dangerous." Brick clenched his fist. "And untouchable." Raymond nodded. "Unless we touch him first." 2 days later, Washington, D.C., a tall glass building stood in the heart of the city. Guards at every door, security cameras on every wall. Inside, people in suits walked fast, holding files and speaking in codes. At the top floor, behind thick glass doors, a man sat at a desk made of steel and stone. His hair was silver, his eyes cold. Leon Hartman. He stared at the screen in front of him. It showed images from the cabin in the woods. "Still alive," he said to himself. "Impressive." A younger man entered the room. "Sir, the team failed to capture them." Hartman didn't move. "I saw," the younger man said. "They now have the drive, and Aaron Briggs is with them." Hartman turned slowly. "Then it's time to finish this. If they want to come after me, let them. I'll be ready." That night, a safe house. Nearby, Raymond opened a large metal box. Inside were old photos, maps, and a locked phone. He connected the flash drive Brick had given him to a laptop. Files loaded on the screen. Hidden files from 15 years ago. Pictures of soldiers. Hidden prisons. Signed orders. Daniels stared in shock. "This is huge. This could shake the country." Raymond nodded. "That's why they've been hunting us," Jackson asked. "So what now?" Raymond stood. "We go public, but first we face Hartman." The next morning, Hartman's headquarters, Raymond, Brick, Daniels, and Jackson sat in a black van parked 2 blocks away. The building looked impossible to enter. Guards with rifles, scanners, dogs. Brick said, "We can't fight our way in." Raymond smiled. "We won't." He held up a small key card. Daniels looked confused. "What's that?" Raymond answered, "From an old friend inside, someone who still believes in truth." Inside the building, Raymond and Daniels walked through the front door. They wore suits and carried briefcases. Jackson stayed in the van, guiding them through security using hacked cameras. Brick watched from a nearby rooftop, sniper rifle ready, just in case. The elevator opened. Raymond stepped inside. "Top floor," he said calmly. The guard inside. The elevator scanned their faces, then paused. His eyes narrowed. Raymond tensed, ready to strike, but the guard nodded. "Go ahead." Doors closed. Raymond whispered, "If this works, we walk out free. If not," Daniels finished, "we go down fighting." Top floor. Hartman's office. Leon Hartman sat at his desk. He knew they were coming. He even smiled a little. The door opened. Raymond and Daniels walked in. Hartman stood. "So, the ghosts return." Raymond said nothing. He placed the briefcase on the desk and opened it. Inside, the flash drive. Daniels added, "This is everything. We sent a copy to the press this morning. It's over, Hartman." Hartman didn't flinch. Instead, he sat back and clapped slowly. "Well done," he said. "You found the truth. You even stayed alive." Raymond's eyes narrowed. "Why aren't you afraid?" Hartman's smile faded. "Because I've prepared for this day." He pressed a button under the desk. Suddenly, lights went red. Doors locked, security alarms echoed. Outside, in the van, Jackson yelled into the radio, "They've triggered lockdown! You need to move! Now!" Back inside the office, armed guards rushed in. Daniels pulled his gun. "We're surrounded!" But before they could shoot, the elevator opened again. A woman in uniform stepped out. She held up a badge. "Federal Intelligence Director, stand down," she ordered. The guards froze. She walked to Hartman. "Leon Hartman, you are under arrest for treason, murder, and conspiracy against the United States." Hartman's jaw dropped. "You," he whispered. "You were mine." The director stared at him coldly. "Not anymore." She turned to Raymond. "We've been watching from the shadows, waiting for someone brave enough to bring the truth. You did it." Raymond's hands were shaking. For the first time in years, he felt peace. Later that night, back at the safe house, the team sat around a small fire. Brick looked at the stars. "So, is it finally over?" The storm had passed. Leon Hartman was arrested. The files were in the hands of federal agents. News channels were showing headlines about the mission, the cover-up, and the brave survivors who brought the truth forward. Raymond sat alone by the window of a quiet hotel room. Rain tapped the glass gently. His hands held a warm cup of coffee, but his mind was cold and restless. He couldn't sleep. Something didn't feel right. It felt unfinished. Later that morning, Brick turned on the TV. Jackson and Daniels sat beside him watching news reports about Hartman's fall. "He is expected to face trial in 2 weeks. The files recovered have opened multiple investigations." Daniels smiled. "We actually did it." But Raymond walked into the room slowly. His face was serious. "No," he said. "It's not over." The others turned to look at him. Raymond continued. "Last night I went through all the files again. Something's missing. The orders Hartman gave, they weren't his." Jackson asked, "What do you mean?" Raymond sat down. In one of the emails, Hartman writes, "We've received final instructions from OS." Brick asked, "Who is OS?" Raymond shook his head. "I don't know, but I think we just arrested a puppet. The real enemy is still out there." Later that day, federal headquarters, Raymond met with the Federal Intelligence Director. He placed the printout of the email on her desk. She read it carefully. OS. That's all it said. She leaned back in her chair. "I've heard whispers of that name. We always thought it was a code, or a legend." Raymond's voice was quiet. "It's real." She nodded slowly. "Then the war isn't over." She pulled out a file. It was thin, with one photo. A man, blurry in the picture, wearing a gray coat and hat, walking near the Russian border. "This man," she said, "goes by many names, but we believe he is OS. He disappears, reappears, controls things from the shadows. He doesn't run companies, he runs people." Raymond looked at the photo. His hands gripped the edge of the desk. "That's him. I've seen that face before. On the mission, 15 years ago. Flashback. The jungle mission, 15 years ago." Raymond and Brick moved through the jungle, deep behind enemy lines. They were not alone. A man in a gray coat watched them from a hilltop, speaking into a radio. Phase 1. Complete. Send the drones. That voice, it didn't match any soldier. It was cold, controlled. Now Raymond remembered. That was OS, back in the present. Raymond stood. "Where is he now?" The director replied. "We tracked him to a private island near the Arctic Circle. No government owns it. No laws apply there. Getting in would be a suicide mission." Raymond's jaw tightened. "Then I'll go." The next day, a hidden hangar. The team reunited. Brick, Daniels, Jackson, and Raymond stood around a map. Raymond pointed at the island. "This is where we end it," Brick said. "Are you sure? We barely survived last time." Raymond looked him in the eye. "That's why we have to go. If he lives, more people die." Jackson asked, "How do we even get close?" Daniels answered, "One of our old friends owes us a favor. She flies unmarked planes for a living." Brick raised an eyebrow. "You mean Kara?" Raymond smiled. "Yes, she said she's in." Later that night, in the air, the unmarked plane cut through the clouds. Kara, a bold woman with sharp eyes and a pilot's cap, looked back at the team. "You've got 10 minutes after I drop you. Then I circle once. If you're not back by... then you're on your own." Raymond nodded. "Understood." Brick checked his gear. Jackson loaded the files into a hidden device. Daniels loaded his gun. They were ready. The island, cold, silent, deadly. Snow crunched under their boots as the team moved through the dark forest. Guards were everywhere, but strangely quiet. Motion sensors, cameras, laser traps. This wasn't just a hideout. It was a fortress, and at the center stood a tall tower. Inside that tower, OS. Inside the tower, OS stood by the glass window, sipping tea. He looked old, but his mind was sharp. His fingers tapped the table. He already knew Raymond was coming. He had let him come, because it was time. Back outside, the team broke past the outer wall, silently, carefully. But then, an alarm. "Run!" Raymond shouted. Bullets flew. Brick returned fire. Jackson took a hit in the arm but kept going. They reached the tower and burst in. Room after room, empty. Until they found a door. Raymond opened it slowly, and there he was, OS face to face. At last. S turned around. His voice was calm. "You've come far, Raymond. Too far." Raymond raised his gun. "This ends now." OS laughed. "You still think this is about war and orders?" Raymond's hand shook slightly. OS walked closer. "I built this world. Hartman was nothing. Just a tool. But you've caused real damage. That's why I'm going to offer you a deal." Brick stepped forward. "He's lying. Don't listen." OS smiled. "Your team dies. Or you take my place." Raymond froze. "What?" "You have what it takes. Anger, control, skill. You could run things now. Save lives your way. No more orders. Just power." Daniels yelled, "Raymond, don't trust him." Raymond's heart pounded. OS placed a hand on his shoulder. Bang! A single shot. Raymond had pulled the trigger. OS fell. The silence was loud. Raymond dropped the gun. "I choose peace." 1 hour later, extraction. The team made it back to the pickup point. Kara's plane circled back. They climbed aboard, bruised, bloody, but alive. Jackson, with his arm wrapped, smiled. "Is it finally over now?" Raymond looked out the window as the island disappeared beneath the clouds. "Yes," he said. "The real enemy is gone." But deep inside, he knew. Sometimes evil wears many faces, and sometimes it comes back. The wind was soft, the sky clear. Raymond stood at the edge of a quiet hill, looking down at a cemetery. In front of him, fresh flowers rested on a white stone. The name read, Aaron Briggs, hero, brother, friend. A tear slid down Raymond's cheek. We made Brother, he whispered. You can rest now. 1 week earlier, the world now knew the truth. The files Raymond's team had uncovered were released to the public. Protests erupted. Leaders were removed. Policies changed. People finally saw what had been hidden for years. Raymond became a symbol, not a hero, but a reminder. Daniels was offered a position in Homeland Security. Jackson went back to his small town and opened a self-defense school. Brick stayed close, quietly helping clean up what was left of Hartman and OS's operations. Raymond, however, disappeared from the spotlight. He couldn't rest because something still bothered him. Late at night, Raymond's apartment, a small box arrived. No name, no return address. Inside, a phone, a note, a memory card. The note read, "You only killed the head. The body is still alive." Raymond inserted the card into his laptop. On the screen, a video. A shadowy figure sat in a dark room. Only their voice could be heard. "You took down Hartman. You shot OS. But did you think we were done? We are not one man. We are an idea. And we are everywhere." Raymond's face tightened. This wasn't over. The next day, at Brick's place, Raymond showed the video to Brick, Daniels, and Jackson. Daniels cursed under his breath. "They're still out there," Jackson asked. "Then what do we do?" Raymond stood slowly. "We go underground, one last time," Brick nodded. "We end this completely." 3 days later, Eastern Europe, in a frozen village far from any city, Raymond and his team tracked the last known location from the memory card signal. What they found shocked them: an old factory, full of servers. Drones, files, a secret command center. It was still active, and they weren't alone. Inside, dozens of agents, men and women trained to erase people like Raymond. A final trap. Raymond looked at his team. "We're not walking out the same, but we walk in together." Daniels smiled. "Wouldn't have it any other way." Brick loaded his weapon. "Let's finish what we started." The final fight. The factory exploded into chaos. Gunfire, smoke, shouts in multiple languages. Raymond and Daniels pushed toward the server room while Brick and Jackson held the line. Every hallway was a war zone. Raymond reached the main terminal. He inserted a virus drive, built by an old contact. The countdown started. Data wipe in 60 seconds. But then, bang, Raymond was hit in the shoulder. He fell. Blood spilled. Daniels screamed, dragging him behind cover. The attacker walked in. The shadowy figure from the video. "You really think killing files kills an idea?" he asked coldly. Raymond stood, bleeding, eyes locked. "No, but killing you does." Daniels shot first. The figure dropped. Raymond hit the final button. The entire system shut down. The escape smoke everywhere. Brick pulled Jackson, wounded but alive. Raymond and Daniels limped out, fire behind them. Kara arrived in a stolen chopper. They barely climbed in. As the factory exploded behind them, they were finally free. 1 week later, the present Raymond stood again by the grave of Briggs. He placed his hand gently on the stone. Finished it. For real this time. Behind him, the team waited near the car. Brick called out, "You ready?" Raymond nodded slowly. As they drove away, the camera zoomed out. The world looked peaceful again. But in Raymond's heart, he knew peace is never promised, only earned and protected.